Hey, single old man back here again. Today I'm gonna make a recipe that my son put together, and he put this together. It's a pizza recipe that he put together last year for my birthday, and apparently he spent a lot of time and had a lot had a lot of starts and stops with his recipe, but eventually he perfected it. And so it is a Detroit style pizza. And so I'm going to try and make it today. He typically uses a cast iron pan to cook his pizza in, but I'm going to use just a regular pan. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So like most good pizza, you need to start off with a good pizza dough. And we're going to start off here with a cup and a half of warm water. We're going to add a little active yeast. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of active yeast. I think I've got a little bit more than that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. It's a tablespoon of sugar. We're going to get everything activated here. We're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes. Again, it's warm water, a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of active yeast. We're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes until it gets foamy, and then we'll add the other ingredients. So we've let this mixture sit for about 10 minutes. And I'm going to add a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt. Got that going. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Sometimes I'll put in 3, but I'm going to follow his recipe as close as I can. So we're going to go with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we've got 4 cups of bread flour that we need to add. And it's important that we use bread flour and instead of all-purpose flour. The bread flour comes out better. And so I'm going to add 4 cups of that. And as I add that, of course I'm mixing it in. You don't want to add it all at once. And you'll see how this comes out after I add all 4 cups. And then after we get that in, we're going to start kneading the dough. So as you can see, I've got my dough all mixed in. And those of you that have done dough like this in the past know that it doesn't seem like the dry ingredients are ever going to be soaked up by the wet ingredients, but eventually it does happen. And so now we're going to knead the dough. You want it to be a little sticky, but not too sticky. And we're going to knead the dough probably 100 strokes, maybe 150 strokes. You really need to work on it pretty hard for a while. And so make sure that you take the time to knead the dough. And then after that, we're going to put it back in a bowl and cover it and let it rise for about 2 hours. Well, I will continue kneading that and then I'll show you the results. So you can see my finished dough ball. I was kneading it for a little over 100 strokes, and it's a little sticky but not too bad. I added a little bit of flour to keep it from being too sticky. Now I'm just going to put it in a bowl and cover it with a wet towel. Cover the bowl with a wet towel and keep it in a relatively warm space. And we're going to put it away for about a 2-hour nap. So the dough has risen for about 2 hours, and it's risen nicely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a couple of pieces here. My son recommends cutting off a little bit for a couple of breadsticks. He said if you don't do that, then you've got too much dough for the pizza. So I'm going to cut off a little bit for some breadsticks, and then I'm going to start to press out the dough in the pan. So I oiled up the pan very generously, and I've got this old beat up pan. My son uses a nice cast iron pan, but I've used a little bit of olive oil, very generous on the pan, and now I'm just starting to spread out the dough out to the edges. And sometimes that dough springs back. You'll get it right to the edge and it'll start to spring back, and you just got to keep working with it until you get it right to the edges. So I'm going to work on that, and then I will show you how it comes out. So I've got the dough all spread out, and the cheese, typically what you're supposed to use is Wisconsin brick cheese. And my son said I can substitute, if I can't find Wisconsin brick cheese, I can substitute a Italian blend. And so that's what I've done here today. I couldn't find the Wisconsin brick cheese. And so with a Detroit style pizza, you put the cheese on first. And I wasn't able to keep this dough all the way to the edges. When you put the cheese on, you want to put the cheese on all the way to the edges. And that's what's going to create a nice crispy, cheesy crust right on the edge. You don't put it in the dough, you just put it all the way to the edges. And normally I like to shred my own cheese, but I did buy packaged cheese this time since it is a blend. And I'll use a little bit more than 2 cups. And that's a matter of personal preference, whether you like a lot of cheese or, keep the cheese a little bit thinner. But I'll add all this cheese, and then I'll put the ingredients on next and the sauce to follow. Now I've got all the ingredients on, and I whipped up the sauce, and the sauce really is tomato sauce, tomato paste, oregano, a little bit of Italian seasoning, a fair amount of garlic salt, and then also crushed red pepper flakes, so give a little bit of spice. So with the Detroit style pizza, the sauce goes on top after you put on the ingredients, and you can see here I'm kind of a meat eater, so I've got a lot of meat on here. Primarily just sausage and pepperoni, and it's a big pizza, so this is going to last me for a while. For an old single guy, I'll put it in the fridge. I'll probably freeze some of it as well. There's just a lot of pizza here, so the oven is preheated to 550 degrees. I'm going to put both the breadsticks and the pizza in there. I'll put the breadsticks on top and the pizza below it, and it won't take long to cook at that temperature. So things are heating up right now, and I've got the fan going, so you might hear the fan in the background, but I'm going to put the so I actually use a ladle to put on the sauce, and like a lot of sauce on there, I've got a lot of sauce here that I can put on, and put that right on top. And with the cheese on first, that's a little bit too much, but with the cheese on first, it keeps the dough from getting soggy. So this is a lot of sauce. So I'll use some of the sauce for my breadsticks when those come out of the oven. There, a lot of sauce, and we'll pop it in the oven, and you'll see how it comes out. Now the pizza is done, and so are the breadsticks. I'll show you how easily this pizza comes out of the pan. Pretty much just pops right out. And you can see that around the edges, looks like it's a little burnt, but you really want it crunchy around the edges. That's where the cheese kind of caught the edge. You know, and again at 550 degrees, you know, it's gonna get nice and crunchy, and that's the way I like it. A lot of sauce on here. I'll probably get some on my face when I eat the pizza, but I like a lot of sauce. So yeah, so that's how it comes out, and so I'm gonna enjoy a piece or two tonight. Oh, I wanted to show you the breadsticks too. So here's how the breadsticks came out. Nice and brown, nice and golden brown. So I'm gonna enjoy those with a little bit of sauce as well. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.